Okay, today we're going to take a look at a question from, or a question posted in the Cynthium community forum on detecting multiple faces. Now, when you first read through the question, it might not be clear that what the poster is actually asking to do is that they want to detect um, faces that are learned as well as unknown faces. I've talked to this person before via email, so I know what they're trying to do. Um, and I've encouraged them to try to use the forum so that way they can get feedback from everyone in the community. Um, Now, with the original post, the AI support bot offered some suggestions, and then community members did as well. Um, and both suggestions pointed back to this tutorial on how to do um, a learning a trained face, which is training custom objects. So you can train it to recognize a person's face, which this would work really well for, if you're going to train every face that the robot recognizes. But what the poster is wanting to do is train certain faces, like his own face, to be recognized as the owner, and then perhaps maybe some other faces, and then other faces that the robot comes across, he wants them to be recognized as like unknown. Like in other words, like the robot sees the face and detects it, but then says like, I don't know who you are. Something along the lines of that. So I've got Easy Builder up, and I've got the camera control. I've got the speech recognition. I don't know that we'll use it. I have a script manager, and I have the variable watcher, so we can see what's going on. And in tracking, I have face detection. Now, a lot of people, when they're new to Easy Builder, the first thing that they'll kind of jump to is face, and they'll think, "Oh, this is great, face detection. Let me enable that." And then they see the square box around their face, and they think, "Aha, my robot knows me." But then they start running into a few difficulties, and they need to do a little further learning to realize that no, your robot at this point doesn't recognize you. What's happening with this blue box is it's reacting to a face, any face. Like, it's just putting a box around my face because a face is detected. It doesn't matter whose face. So in this tracking, like, you have color, face, motion, you have different things here, and you have object as well. An object is where you can store a custom face, where you can train it to recognize a specific object. So under object tracking, after you've trained it, then you can have Easy Builder recognize a specific face. But under just the face tracking, all it's doing is recognizing that it sees a face. And then some additional scripting needs to be done in order for your robot to actually act on it. Because right now it's just putting up a blue box, right? It's just reacting to a face, mine. Like, here's Sarah Connor. Again, a blue box, nothing more. Back to mine. The same difference, right? We haven't done anything. So let's do something to change that. So one of the things that the poster wanted to do was be able to react on unknown faces. So I have a script here, loop face detection. Click on edit to look at the code. So I have a loop. Within that loop, we have an if statement. And I'm taking the camera is tracking. So if camera is tracking, if it's greater than 0, and camera tracking type equals face, then here's our action. Here's what we're going to do. Say, wait, I see a face. I don't recognize. And then we end the if, and then go to loop. So this just continues forever because we're in a loop. I could rename this. This could be, we could call it main, we could call it camera tracking, and then rename this appropriately, right? These variables are, not things I invented, but instead they're already populated because we have the camera control added. Okay. So we can see here, camera is tracking. Camera is tracking no objects, 0. Camera is tracking 1 object. See the variable change? Camera is tracking type face. Okay, it's tracking a face. So let's start this.
I see a face, I don't recognize. 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 I see a face, I don't recognize.
Okay, enough of that. So now it's responding to a face it doesn't recognize, and of course it would, because it could never know the face, because that's all it does is just detect the face. So the next step is to then train an object and program it to respond to that. So then that way it understands the difference between I saw someone I recognize and then someone I didn't. So that's the next step. So now we want to go to object and train a new object. Actually, first, let me go back to tracking. Let me turn off that. That's annoying. Train a new object. Name this Justin. Put up the box. And if you have not watched the training video, then you should do that to watch the suggested method on training a new face. Okay. Okay, so now it knows who I am. And now we're done. Okay. So, and we could do one more. Let's do another one. Let's do Sarah Connor. Okay. Let's go back to device, go to tracking, go to object. Sarah Connor. All right. Okay, after a short pause, I've created a new script that should do multiple face detection for detecting faces and trained objects. So under our tracking, let's take a look at the objects we have trained. I've got two objects. I've got myself and I have Sarah Connor trained. Okay, so under tracking, I want to enable object tracking. And you'll notice over here on the variable watcher, we have object name and we have um, um, yeah, object name, and then we can enable face tracking too. It should work the same for Sarah Connor. And what happens if we show a new face? What about Ivan Drago? Okay, so before we activate these, let's take a look at the script I created and we'll see if it's going to work right or not. So what I did is I copied the code that we had before into a new script, which is something I recommend you do when you're testing. If you have something that's working somewhat reasonable to what you're testing, copy and paste your code into a new script and modify things from there. So you can see we have our camera is tracking if it's greater than 0 and camera tracking type equals face. Then within that, then we're acting on other things. So the next thing we act on, so if this is true for just it detecting a face at all, then if the camera object count from where we trained our objects, if it's greater than 1, because if it's at 0, it means it's not detecting anything we trained. But if it's at 1 or higher, it means it's seeing things that we've trained in there, the two faces so far. So if it's at 1, then say, wait, I see, and then plus camera object name. And by the way, these variables, they're easy to obtain. If you click on the variables tab over here, you can see all of the variables that are available. And you can just double click on them and add them into your code. But if that condition is not met, then we're saying else. Say, wait, I see a face, I don't recognize, and then we're ending the if statement. And then go to loop, because this should only be kicked off if we're tracking something. If it doesn't see anything at all, then it shouldn't be doing any of this. So let's see how we do. Let's start. What didn't it like? All right, let's edit this. Let's go to the console and what don't you like here? error, missing, closing statement, and if. All right, well, darn it. All right. Let's try again here. Let me try it this way. End if. Well, I think that'll work. Not the happiest with that. All right, so we're not tracking anything. All right, start. Evidently that did not save. End if. Save. All right, let's enable the face and the object tracking. Start.
I see a face, I don't recognize. Okay, so I believe I had a few errors in my programming logic. So we left the initial if statement alone, right? If camera is tracking equals greater than 0 and camera tracking type equals face. So then what I added in order to get it to save my object name is I added if camera object count equals greater than 0, but I forgot to add, well actually I had it is greater than 1, and probably I'm only going to recognize one object at a time in the frame, so I had that wrong. I needed to set it to greater than 0 instead of greater than 1, and then I needed to change it to camera tracking type equals object. So I needed to add that. I think I started to originally do that and then I didn't. So that was my bad. So we're going to save that and give that a run. We have our face and our object detection running. We're going to see how this works. We get errors. No. Let's see what's wrong. What does it not like? What am I missing now? Error line 3, missing an operator for face.
Error on line 3. Yep. The binary operator is and. Also, my bad. Yeah. Okay. Try again.
I see a face, I don't recognize. 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 I see a face, I don't recognize.
Okay, I'm going to do a bit of troubleshooting here. And I am nullifying the face, the unknown face object recognition. And I'm going to see if the logic for the camera object detection is working the way I think that it should. So this is another troubleshooting step that everyone should know how to do, is testing components of their code when you're experiencing problems. Let me save this. Save it. Leave both running, face and object detection. Start.
I see Justin. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see Sarah Connor. 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 I see Justin. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see a face, I don't recognize. I see Justin. 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 I see Sarah Connor. I see Sarah Connor. I see Sarah Connor. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see a face, I don't recognize. 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 I see Justin. I see Justin.
All right, I believe we have it fixed now. So, what we've got is we'll take a look at the code here. I've changed the order on the scripting. Is first thing that we're doing now is we're looking at the object count, and we're looking at the object type, and we're going to say that first, or act on it first. So if we detect the object, then we're going to act on that. Else, if we just see a face, then we'll act on that. Because I think what is happening is the camera is detecting kind of like a priority. I could be wrong about it, but I think that's I think that's kind of what's happening. It's what happened. It is what is happening. So I'm just changing the flow of it a little bit so that way it works better. And then when I start the script,
I see Justin. I see Justin. I see a face I don't recognize. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see Sarah Connor. 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 I see Justin. I see a face I don't recognize.
there's
I see a
Ivan
face
Drago.
I don't recognize.
We don't have him
I see
programmed
a
in.
face I don't recognize. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see Justin. I see a face I don't recognize. 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 I see Justin. I see Justin. I see a face I don't recognize. 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 I see Sarah Connor. I see Sarah Connor. I see Sarah Connor.
So that's uh, my best attempt at doing multiple face recognition within Easy Builder using the tools at hand with the object recognition and the face recognition so you can detect faces it doesn't understand and faces it doesn't understand.